اوكي شيخ تفضل ان شاء الله تعالى.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم لك الحمد على نعمك العظيمة وآلائك الجسيمة، ونصلي ونسلم على عبدك ورسولك محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. It's my pleasure once again to welcome you to another episode in our series Illuminate Your Life, a study of 101 traditions from the Prophet of Mercy, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And today I have this beautiful hadith about what we owe towards the weak and the vulnerable, the widows, the orphans, the destitute, and the helpless, those who are challenged physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially. I will read the hadith in Arabic, translate it, and explain some of the beautiful lessons that we can impart, we can imbibe, we can learn and apply in our life, inshallah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "As-sa'i al-armala wal-miskin kal-mujahidi fi sabilillah aw al-qa'im al-layla as-sa'im an-nahar." Al-Rawi Abu Huraira, Al-Masdar Sahih al-Bukhari. Those who struggle, those who strive hard to take care of the widows and the destitute are like warriors in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, those who are in jihad, in the actual battlefield, fighting for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a tremendous status, reward for them. But those who struggle to take care of the widows and orphans and the destitute are like the warriors in the path of Allah, or like those who spend all nights in prayers, long hours in prayers, and fast, performs extra optional fasts. Narrator is Abu Huraira and the source is Sahih al-Bukhari. This is a very important tradition. Essentially, it teaches us the concept of solidarity, the duty of caring for the weak and the vulnerable. The weak and vulnerable in Islam include widows, orphans, and the destitute, and all those who are unable to support themselves because of various physical, mental, or emotional or other challenges, including refugees and the dispossessed. When you look around, they are all around us. Today, we are living in a global village. What happens, in the other country is like brought to us as if it is happening right beside in our neighborhood. So the entire world has become a global village, and we have a responsibility to the weak and the vulnerable wherever they are. The Hadith teaches us that Islam is not a religion of rituals alone. Of course, it teaches us ibadat, but ibadah, the concept of ibadah in Islam is not limited to the acts of worship. It covers the whole spectrum of life because Islam is a way of life intended to create a compassionate society. Therefore, even as we are to pray, fast, and perform other obligatory duties, religious duties, we also must pay attention to care for our fellow human beings and work to relieve suffering and ameliorate, improve their conditions. It's our duty. That is the theme of this hadith. And the hadith teaches us those who work to support and care for the widows, orphans, and the destitute are performing a great act of worship. And those who invest time and energy to do so will gain the same rewards as those of warriors or those who pray at night and fast during the day. If you look at the history of Islam, when the Prophet ﷺ began this call, began his mission, and started preaching, from the very beginning, People took this religion not as simply as rituals, but teaching the faithful to act compassionately, to build that social solidarity. And they realized compassion and social solidarity are integral teachings of Islam. In the pagan society, it was a revolutionary idea. And this idea that compassion and solidarity is integral to Islam, it was imbibed by the early believers. Thus, when Ja'far ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, the leader of the Muslim delegation to Negus, Najashi, he was called before Najashi, and Najashi asked him, because the Quraysh had sent a delegation asking Najashi to return these people because they they fled and they were against the society. They have a duty to bring them back to face justice in Makkah. But Najashi did not agree to do so unless he heard from their own mouth what is their mission, what is the message, what is the new faith they are practicing. So Jafar ibn Abi Talib anhu summarized his mission, and we are only quoting words relevant for our idea here. He said we were a people steeped in Jahiliyyah. And one of the most important thing about the Jahiliyyah that Islam came to eliminate and abolish. The weak, the powerful among us devoured the weak. So there was no justice, there was no compassion. Likewise, the same integral nature of this issue that we ought to look after the weak and the vulnerable was brought home, was addressed by Abu Bakr Siddiq, the first caliph. When Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was elected as the caliph to succeed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the ruler of Muslims, he faced the nation. He addressed, and his speech summarizes, actually it is a mini constitution, the guiding principles for his rule. And he said in his, Al-Qawiyyu fikum da'ifun indi, the powerful among you shall be weak with me until I have taken from them the due of the weak. وَالضَّعِيفُ فِيكُمْ قَوِيٌّ عِنْدِي. They said that the weak shall be strong with me until I have given them their rightful due. So standing with the weak and the vulnerable and give them their rights is integral to Islamic social life. The Prophet ﷺ also taught the believers always to look out for the weak and the vulnerable. He said, "Ubghudi du'afa'akum فَإِنَّمَا تُرْزَقُونَ وَتُنْصَرُونَ بِضُعَفَائِكُم." Look out for me, the weak and the vulnerable among you, as Allah provides for you and gives you victory over your enemies because of them. It is because of the weak and the vulnerable that Allah provides for you sustenance. And it is because of them that Allah gives you victory. But in the above hadith, the first hadith we quoted, the Prophet used the word armala. What is the meaning of this word armala? Of course, armala, the obvious meaning is widows. But it has also another meaning. It includes those who are not, maybe not widows as such. They may have husbands, but these husbands are incapable of supporting them. So they have no one to provide. So not only widows, but those women or even men who have no one to support or care for them, and they cannot support for themselves because of challenges they have in lives. Could be physical challenges, could be mental challenges, could be emotional challenges. It could be financial challenges. So it is our duty as a community to look after them. Therefore, those who are investing time and money in works and projects or services geared to this noble cause are performing great acts of worship. Organizations like Islamic Relief, Muslim Welfare, Human Concern International, projects like that, their work is no less valuable than those of the warriors, those who are work in this area. Their work is no less valuable than the warriors, the mujahideen, or those who devote themselves to prayer and fasting. Because such works are intended to save lives, and saving life is one of the five foremost fundamental objectives of the divine law, the Sharia. Rasulullah also warns us that it is because of the weak and the vulnerable that Allah provides and assists us. So if we were to neglect this important duty, the consequence is serious. We are eliciting the wrath of Allah. We are bringing upon us the wrath of Allah. And as a punishment, Allah may take away His blessings and abandon us to our own devices. And there is nothing worse than being abandoned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا مَنَعَ قَوْمٌ الزَّكَاةَ. This is one concept the Prophet mentioned in a long hadith about the things that is going to, when moral decline become rampant, the consequences mentioned, so many consequences. One of them is promiscuous behavior. When promiscuous behavior become rampant, Allah will send down diseases that were unknown for humanity before. We have it in front of us. Another thing he mentioned, وَمَا مَنَعَ قَوْمٌ الزَّكَاةَ إِلَّا مُنِعُوا الْقَطْرَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ وَلَوْلَا الْبَهَائِمُ لَمْ يُمْطَرُوا. If a people were to refuse the obligatory duty of charity, Allah may be told even a drop of raindrops, and if not for the mute animals, no rain would fall from heaven. So this tradition also teaches us that our duty for caring for the weak and the vulnerable extends to all of the living beings, including the mute animals. Lessons that this important hadith teaches us: Islam envisages a society built on social solidarity and welfare. And Muslims have a duty, must pay attention to support the weak and the vulnerable, even as we are obligated to perform prayer and other religious rituals. And those individuals, male or female, who work to provide care for the weak are performing a most valuable service. They merit great rewards equal to those of the warriors who risk their lives and those who pray and fast always. And if we were to neglect our duty towards the weak and the vulnerable, we are bringing upon us the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah may send down His punishment, na'udhu billah. And our duty to care for the weak and the vulnerable is not limited to humans. Instead, it extends to all living beings. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.